They say every man has two lives, and the second one begins the moment he realizes he only has one. Let me tell you a story about a man who thought his life was over, a man who was knocked so far down into the dirt that the world wrote him off. But he didn't stay there. He fought, he bled, he stumbled through darkness, and he clawed his way back into the light. This isn't just his story, it's a story about you, about what's possible when you refuse to let your failures define your future. Listen closely, because if you've ever felt like giving up, if you've ever looked in the mirror and seen nothing but disappointment, this story is about to shake you awake. Our story begins with Michael. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He wasn't some superstar on TV. He was an ordinary man with extraordinary dreams. In his 20s, he was hungry, ambitious, ready to conquer the world. He built a small business, worked late nights, lived on coffee and hustle, and he believed with all his heart that success was only one deal away. But life has a way of testing you in ways you never see coming. One bad decision, one wrong partnership, and suddenly the walls start collapsing. His business fell apart. The bank accounts drained. The debt piled up. And just like that, the people who once cheered him on went silent. Have you ever felt that? That silence, that cold emptiness when the crowd disappears. That was his reality. Michael's girlfriend left him. His so-called friends vanished. His parents shook their heads in quiet disappointment. He lost his apartment, he lost his car, and he found himself sleeping on a friend's couch with nothing but a backpack of clothes. And if that wasn't enough, his health started collapsing too. Stress, sleepless nights, junk food and alcohol to numb the pain. The man who once dreamed of conquering the world could barely drag himself out of bed. But the cruelest part wasn't losing money, wasn't losing things, it was losing himself. Michael would stare into the mirror and not even recognize the man staring back. His eyes were hollow, his shoulders slumped, his confidence shattered. He started whispering to himself, "Maybe I'm not meant for more, maybe I'm just a failure." And those whispers became louder day after day until they screamed inside his head. This is the place most people quit. This is the point where people surrender, where they decide to live the rest of their lives small, defeated, and forgotten. But something happened one night that changed everything. It was 3 a.m. Michael sat alone in a cheap, dark room, staring at the ceiling, his heart heavy with despair. His phone buzzed, and it was a message from an old friend. "Bro, I heard what happened. Just want you to know nobody's coming to save you. You gotta save yourself." That was it. One sentence, but it hit him like lightning. Nobody's coming to save you. He repeated it over and over. Nobody's coming. Not your parents, not your friends, not your boss, not your government. Nobody. If you want out, you have to drag yourself out. That sentence became the seed of his comeback. The next morning, Michael did something small, almost invisible to the world, but monumental to him. He got up, laced up his worn-out sneakers, and went for a run. He didn't even make it a mile before collapsing, gasping for air, sweat dripping, legs on fire. But for the first time in months, he felt alive. That tiny spark, that tiny step was the beginning. Day after day, he kept running. Some mornings he wanted to quit. Some mornings his mind screamed, "Go back to sleep, it doesn't matter." But he ran anyway. With every step, his body got stronger, his mind clearer, his spirit louder. And soon, he wasn't just running from failure. He was running toward redemption. And here's what I need you to understand. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with some magical opportunity falling into your lap. It happens in the grind, in the daily choice to rise when everything inside you wants to stay down. Michael started reading again, books on mindset, biographies of fighters and leaders who had fallen and risen again. He filled his mind with fuel. He cleaned up his diet, not because he wanted abs, but because he wanted clarity. He stopped surrounding himself with toxic voices and started walking alone if it meant peace. Slowly, the man in the mirror began to change. His shoulders straightened. His eyes had fire again. He began applying for jobs, not with desperation, but with determination. Doors didn't open right away. He got rejected dozens of times. But instead of sinking back into self-pity, he used rejection as fuel. Every no became a push-up. Every failure became another mile on the road. Every doubt became an extra hour of learning a new skill. Months later, Michael landed a low-paying job at a warehouse. Some people laughed. From businessman to box mover. What a joke. But Michael smiled because he knew it wasn't his final stop. He was rebuilding. He treated that warehouse job like it was his empire. He showed up early, stayed late, worked harder than anyone else, and people noticed. He saved a few dollars from every paycheck, skipped parties, skipped Netflix binges, and invested his time into building himself again. Online courses, books, networking. He started drafting a new plan for his life, this time smarter, wiser, stronger. He wasn't just chasing money anymore, he was chasing purpose. And let me pause right here to tell you this. Sometimes you have to fall all the way down to discover what really matters. Sometimes losing everything is the greatest gift, because it strips away the noise and forces you to ask, who am I without the applause, without the trophies, without the titles? Michael found his answer in the struggle. Years later, that man who once slept on a couch, broken and hopeless, was standing on a stage, speaking to hundreds of people about resilience, discipline, and faith. He had rebuilt his business, bigger, stronger, more impactful. He had rebuilt his body, lean, powerful, confident. He had rebuilt his mind, no longer a victim but a warrior. And he realized the truth. The comeback will always be stronger than the setback. But here's the part that matters most. Michael isn't unique. He isn't some chosen one with supernatural gifts. He's just a man who refused to stay down. And if he can do it, so can you. Right now, maybe you feel like Michael once did. Maybe you're drowning in bills, crushed by failure, abandoned by people who once promised they'd always be there. Maybe you've lost yourself in addictions, in doubt, in fear. But hear me, this is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your comeback. Nobody's coming to save you, but you don't need a savior. You need a decision. One decision. To rise, to fight. To refuse to let the darkness win. Because life will hit you. It will knock you down, humiliate you, strip away your comfort. But it will also give you a chance to prove to yourself that you are stronger than anything thrown your way. And maybe your comeback starts today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, maybe it's a run around the block. Maybe it's sending out one more job application. Maybe it's choosing water instead of whiskey. Maybe it's turning off the TV and picking up a book. Small steps, big shifts. That's how comebacks are built. So ask yourself right now, are you going to stay down or are you going to rise? The choice is yours. When you hit rock bottom, it feels like the world has slammed the door on you. But what most people don't realize is that rock bottom isn't the end. It's the solid ground where you finally get to rebuild. That's exactly what happened to Michael. He woke up one morning with nothing left but the choice to either stay down or fight back. And the truth, most people stay down. They stay stuck in their excuses, replaying the pain over and over, convincing themselves that life is unfair. But Michael decided to do the one thing that separates the broken from the unstoppable. He chose to rise. Not with a miracle, not with luck, with small, brutal, consistent steps that most people aren't willing to take. He started waking up earlier, not because he loved mornings, but because discipline doesn't ask what you love, it asks what you're willing to sacrifice. He started exercising, not to look good, but to teach his mind that he was still in control of his body, still in control of his choices. Every push-up was a reminder, I am not finished. Every mile he ran was a declaration, I am coming back. And here's the lesson for you: when your life is in pieces, don't wait for motivation. Motivation won't save you. Action will. You can cry, you can hurt, but when you put one foot in front of the other, when you choose to build instead of break, that's when your story begins to change. Michael didn't climb out of rock bottom in a day. He faced setbacks. He felt doubt crawling in his head every morning. But he kept showing up because he finally understood that success isn't about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you refuse to stay down. And every time he chose to get up, Every time he refused to let failure define him, he started building momentum. Your comeback doesn't start with applause. It doesn't start with people believing in you. It starts in silence, in the lonely hours when no one is watching. That's where you build the foundation. That's where you earn the future you've been dreaming about. Rock bottom isn't your burial ground, it's your rebirth ground. And if you're listening to this right now, it's not an accident. This is your wake-up call. Don't settle for staying down when you were built to rise. The hardest part about a comeback is not the first step. It's surviving the endless days when nothing seems to change, when you're grinding in the dark with no results, no applause, no one cheering for you, and your mind whispers, "What's the point?" That's where most people quit, but not Michael. He felt the weight of failure on his back every single day. He felt the silence of people who once claimed they had his back, but when they disappeared, he realized something powerful. That no one is coming to save you, and that's your greatest advantage. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you start becoming your own hero. He would drag himself out of bed, lace up his shoes, and push through the pain, not because it felt good, but because he understood that discipline is built in discomfort, that greatness is forged when no one's watching, that progress is invisible before it becomes undeniable. He stopped living for instant results and started living for future rewards, and that shift, that patience, became his weapon. Every rejection, every doubt, every long night of struggle carved him into someone stronger, sharper, hungrier. And you, right now, you might be stuck in the same place, staring at the gap between where you are and where you want to be, feeling like the climb is impossible. But let me tell you this. Impossible is just the name of a wall that cracks when you keep pounding on it. Day after day, Michael kept hitting that wall, and eventually cracks appeared. A job offer, a small win, a door opened not because he was lucky, but because consistency makes you unstoppable. And once you break through one wall, you start realizing all walls can break. That's the fire of a comeback. You don't need everything to change overnight. You just need one sign, one shift, one win to prove to yourself that you're still alive, still fighting, still capable of rising. Michael started to believe again, not because life suddenly became easy, but because he proved to himself that no amount of loss could erase his will to fight. And that's the lesson. You don't rebuild your life by waiting for hope. You rebuild it by creating hope with your actions. The thing about a comeback is that once the tide begins to turn, people suddenly reappear. The same people who doubted you, who laughed at you, who whispered behind your back, they start saying, "I always believed in you." But Michael knew the truth. They didn't believe. They only came back when the glow of his grind started showing, when his scars turned into proof of resilience, when his silence started roaring louder than their doubts. And here's the lesson. Never build your life on the approval of people who vanished when you were drowning, because real strength doesn't come from applause. It comes from the nights when no one clapped, the mornings when no one cheered, the moments when only your heart kept beating out the words, "Keep going." Michael had leveled up. His body was stronger, his mind sharper, his spirit unbreakable, but most importantly, he was no longer the same man who fell. He had been reborn in the fire of struggle, and that fire made him untouchable. And listen to me, got the same fire. The same blood that flows through every comeback story flows through yours. The world doesn't care where you start, it only cares how far you're willing to go, and if you refuse to quit, if you refuse to stay broken, you will rise. Michael started stacking wins, not because life became easy, but because he became relentless. Every day he showed up, he trained harder, he worked smarter, he fought longer, and suddenly opportunities started multiplying. Why? Because the world rewards those who refuse to fold. The world opens doors to those who keep knocking when their knuckles are bleeding. And this is where you need to stop underestimating yourself. You've survived every single bad day in your life up to now. You've carried pain that should have broken you. You've walked through storms that should have drowned you. And you're still here. Do you realize what that means? You're already a survivor. You're already proof of strength. Now it's time to stop surviving and start conquering. Now here's the truth. Comeback stories don't end with a single victory. They end with transformation. Michael didn't just get a job, didn't just pay off debt, didn't just regain what he lost. He became someone unstoppable. He became someone who could look at failure and smile, someone who could stare at doubt and laugh, someone who could walk through the storm knowing he already carried the strength to survive it. And that, my friend, is your message today. No setback is permanent. No failure is final. No night is so dark that it can steal your destiny. You are more powerful than you know, stronger than you realize, and more capable than the fear inside your head wants you to believe. So what does your comeback look like? It doesn't matter if the world doesn't notice. What matters is that you notice yourself, that you get up when everyone else is asleep, that you move forward when everyone else is stuck, that you refuse to let your past dictate your future. Every step you take, every effort you make, every choice you commit to today is a brick in the foundation of the life you've always wanted. And soon, those bricks turn into walls, those walls into a fortress, and that fortress into the life you were born to live. You will inspire others not by what you say, but by what you do when no one's watching. You will motivate not by speeches, but by showing up day after day, by refusing to give up when everything seems lost. Michael's story isn't unique. He isn't special. He just refused to quit. And if he can do it, so can you. Maybe you've been knocked down. Maybe you've been betrayed, abandoned, and doubted. Maybe the world has said no 1,000 times, but here's the ultimate truth. Your comeback starts the second you decide it starts. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when it's convenient. Right now, today, right here. You are not behind, you are not lost, you are not finished. You are only getting started. So rise, fight, build, push, learn, bleed, sweat, fail, try again, and refuse to let anything steal your destiny. Because your story doesn't end in defeat. Your story ends in triumph, and the world is waiting to see the power you've been hiding all along. The question now is simple. Will you rise, or will you let this moment pass?